created content, but I just thought I'd bring it up because um, I could definitely do that, like write articles and you know put them on an NFT and use the proceedings to fund initiatives for marketing.
You mean Mirror?
Yes, exactly, mirror.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's really interesting. Hold on, I'm just gonna play our music. Okay, if it's too loud, you down. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Um, I'm gonna put meeting. Okay. This might be a little bit lighter attendance today, I'm guessing. Because a lot of people are away. Um, um, so Manu, I don't want to lose your thought there. Is my screen? Are you seeing my screen share or not?
It's loading.
It's still loading.
Yeah, yeah. At least
Let me try it again.
hi Rita, welcome to the Sampo working group call.
Hello.
If it's just for the meeting agenda, I
Yeah, it's
think
not
you
going
can
on.
share my screen.
Yeah, it's not going. Well, you all can see it. Sorry, I'm just the next couple of weeks are going to be a little bit rough for me being on the road. Um, I This laptop is kind of so. You can see the agenda in the Sampo Clarity base. Um,
And he shared it. It's on Andy's shared screen.
okay. Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right. So let's dive in, and Nate's going to be joining us a little bit later. Um, Ilan has a conflict, so every other week for the next little while, she has conflict with this time because she's doing the orientation calls with Eduardo, and so it's right during this time. Um, so we're trying to figure out how to make that work. Um, let's um, let's start by doing what we always do. And Manu, been a while that we've had you be able to read the mission. Would you do that for us? Read the sample mission from the. Can you see it on the screen?
Sure. So the sample working group develops and grows the value of the economic layer of the token engineering commons. It aligns this microeconomy with the TEC mission and the collective success and individual benefit of its token holders.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks.
Solid.
I thought that today, because today is probably going to be a little bit lighter call. Um, what I wanted to do is um, start off with just like this question of why are you personally motivated to be here investing your time, precious time and energy. It's not probably to become rich and famous is my guess. So other than that, what is it that's wrong here? And so um, I'm gonna just throw it out. Enti, would you be willing to kick things off?
Sure. Um, well, I guess my main motivation is that um, I feel quite aligned with um the field and the work we want to do ourselves. I find the tech engineering field pretty interesting. I think it's the future, and after being some time working or contributing in the space, you I don't know, was like the perfect moment and the perfect time to just land up here and meet all these awesome people with really great ideas. Um, that's I guess my reasoning, just for the people and for the field itself. That's my, my thing. And I'll pass it over.
Thank you, Enti. Um, so for me, I think I really, I've always like kind of like trying to find new and different ways of doing things in general. So when I got to this space and started learning about token engineering and about the opportunities that this can bring to regular people, like of creating economies within their projects, within their groups of people, within their communities, I was just like fascinated to be able to create an economic system without any third party or without any institution or other type of entity. And this added with the idea of this being a DAO and participating in a DAO and everything that it's involved there of a new way of working and a new way of collaborating and contributing. It was just like really aligned to what I enjoy, what I like doing. Yeah, I guess I like kind of innovation and trying to look for different ways. So yeah, I just really felt um, aligned. Let's say, yeah. Um, I'll pass it to Risha.
Thanks, Bear. So I think that token engineering is really important if we want sort of the new autonomous organizations to survive in Web3. And I personally find that we're at the forefront of kind of defining how all of this will play out. And I think it's really cool. I think it's part of like it's like you're part of like an important part of history. So for me, it just feels really cool to be able to help usher this sort of like new era in. I know it's a little bit dramatic, but I really feel like this is how it feels to me. I'll pass it on to Rex.
Hey all. I couldn't attend last week, but I'm here. I'm not gonna miss two in a row, right? So I'm pretty motivated because I feel like it's something that's been lacking. I feel like token engineering, sustainable economies, projects that try to make sense of themselves, not with a 6 month time scale, but that of 20 years. In a way, I guess it is because the technology is moving so fast, but I feel like the token engineering commons is kind of a force for good um, in trying to get rid of so many shitcoins. So that's why I'm invested in it. It's something that's close to my heart and my studies and the rest of it. So yes, and I joined a bit late. So who's left? Manu, have you spoken yet?
Thanks, Rex. I have not, and I will now. So, for me, I resonate with what Risha said. And yeah, well, the first thing that got me here was the culture. And ever since then, I've really become intoxicated with the opportunity to leave a legacy by being one of the first civil engineers in the space, certainly in Mexico and Latin America. Um, there are so many things that you can do with cryptocurrency systems that I feel this is sort of like the most cost-effective way, like learning token engineering and then transitioning to physical public goods. There's nothing good. There's nothing wrong with funding digital public goods, but I really resonate with uh, physical public goods, or like the regen side of things, regenerating ecosystems and sort of like seeing physically the results of your work and the results of coming up with incentive alignment within the cryptoeconomic system, right? So I'm really interested in the legacy that it implies learning token engineering and being one of the first ones to do that, being at the vanguard, and how many doors that opens, and how valuable that can be as a service to others. Um, Also, I'm very stubborn, and I will not leave the TEC at a worse state than it was when I came in. So I really want to see this sort of like pre-crisis, or this sort of like moment of tension. Um, I really want to see it through, and I want to see if I can, uh, be a big part of the solution of that. So yeah, Um, I will pass it to you, Gideon. I believe you're the last one.
Yeah, thanks, Manu. Wow, super inspiring. I have to say, just as a side note, I really love this team. This is, and we've got a few more folks who aren't here right now, but like I do feel like, to your point, Manu, like this is kind of a make or break. The next 6 months or so are kind of a make or break period for the TEC. And I do feel like the energy that's building here in Sampo is going to be really important to getting through into kind of the next phase of the TEC. For me personally, the reason I'm here is uh, that, as some of you know, I spent a lot of time in like corporate America, like in working for big tech, and that kind of drained me. It made me feel kind of a little bit meaningless. I mean, I still had fun. It was great, and it was meaningful at one level. But then I started working with the environmental movement and helping them with various technologies. And what I found in that work was that we would have a win, like we would push through some policy in Washington State or someplace, Oregon or wherever, and then we'd be all excited, and then 2 or 3 years later, the business community would come around and basically plug that hole and like shut down whatever it was that we had had won. And I just thought, oh my god, like this is a losing, like the way the whole system is set up. It's it's set up to be unsustainable. Like it's just meant to extract. And so, yeah, I spent some time just really thinking about and looking into mission-driven, stakeholder-centric systems. And this, when I finally started digging into blockchain, and then I found my way to the TEC and all of the kind of the network of sister organizations, I just was like, wow, this is it. Because to me, it feels like the job before us is reinventing the fabric of economics. Like it's, how do we basically recode the code within the codes, right? And I just it feels to me like the TEC is this beacon. We're not, the light is not that bright yet, but that's what we're building, is this really powerful beacon for an alternative view of the economic fabric. So that's why I'm here. And I'm just so happy to hear that variations of that kind of excitement with just here in the sport team. So that's great. And I wanted to just take a little bit of time to just touch on that. So thank you. Um, let's so Nate is going to be back in a couple minutes, and he's going to give us an update on what's happening with the Treasury policy and the proposal that he's putting together. I just wanted to give a quick update on a couple things. One is just a reminder, I'm kind of out um, between now and September 8th, but I am taking like 2 to 3 hours in the morning and mostly uh, focused on trying to keep some of the main projects that we're trying to push through, just to keep those moving along. So I'm having conversations with folks on that, particularly the curation service. And then the other thing that I'm trying to do is, if you look at the outcomes that we said that we promised we would fulfill for the community, some of them have to do with kind of like the vision for the next wave of services, and then a lot about like positioning the TEC, like how do we talk about ourselves for fundraising. So that's some of the stuff that I'm working on. I'm just trying to use some of this quiet time in the morning to work on that, and my hope is to be able to then share some of that stuff I've already shared in very rough form. And what I'm hoping is that in like probably 2 weeks from now, I will share with you all the kind of the next iteration on that. And then from there, take that to the other stewards. And I think that what's becoming really clear to me is that Sampo is a catalyst for a lot of this stuff, but it's going to be so important that we engage all of the working groups and all the stewards and everybody in basically pulling together some services that can help turn the TC around. So, so that's basically what September is going to look like, I think. So that's the first thing, is just basically that's kind of what my time is like over the next couple of weeks. If you've got urgent stuff, feel free to ping me. I'm still here and checking, as I said, in the mornings. The other update is one of the goals that we had in the proposal, and one of the promises we made to the community, was that we would submit at least 2 grant applications, and so that we can put a check next to that, because on Friday I just submitted kind of an updated version of the Gitcoin grant that we do every few months for the TEC, and I positioned it as like a slightly different pitch than we've done in the past. One of the things I learned in doing fundraising for like 10 years is that people get way more excited when they can invest in a specific project than investing in what's called general support. So if you just say like, hey, give us money for the organization, people are like, okay, I guess so. But what would this be used for? When you can be very specific and get them excited about a particular project, that tends to be way more engaging. So I just wanted to, even though this money is not going to go for, it's not going to go to the curation service specifically, because the wallet address that the Gitcoin is pointing to is just the TEC. It doesn't matter. Like, we can still pitch this project as a way of pitching the TEC, and so that's one grant. And then we also did this Explorer Award, which is basically focused on projects that help to build education, knowledge sharing, and exploration for Web3. So we asked for like $9,000, 9,000 DAI for that, and that is going to be aimed at the curation service. Any questions about these grants or anything on the fundraising side of things? Or questions or perspectives? Okay. One thing to just share, you'll see in this document that I'll be sharing in a couple of weeks, but one of the conclusions I'm coming to is that when I came into this at the very beginning of Sampo, I was thinking that we would have fundraising be kind of a key focus for us in this first phase. But one of the things that I've seen is that some of the responses we're getting from our existing token holders is like, hey, what are you guys actually doing? Like, what did you do with the first round of money that we invested into the TEC, or that we funded the TEC for? And I think it's going to be much easier for us to go out and raise additional rounds of funding once we can point to some specific services that and real value that we're providing for the mission and for the broader stakeholders. And by that I mean the people who are, the token engineering professionals, the users of the stack, the users of this commons. So once we can point to that and we can show actual value, that's like, wow, here's, once people can say, wow, the TEC is really doing some amazing work to build this field, it's going to be so much easier to raise money. And whether that's money, like people putting money into the augmented bonding curve directly, or giving us grants. So that's kind of the going assumption. Even though we're doing these existing grants, what I'm saying is I think it's going to be way more important for us to build these services, build some excitement again for what we're doing in the future of the TEC, and then the funding will start to flow. So I guess any thoughts on that before we move on? Does that seem like a decent strategy, or are people concerned about that?
That sounds pretty good. And in terms of kind of pointing them to the first set of things that might look interesting for them to give us further funds, what are some services that we have in mind for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be the theme behind all these services will be Shelling Point. The Shelling Point services. These are services that will actually help to turn the TEC into a true Shelling Point for token engineering. So the first one is going to be the token engineering knowledge curation service that we're building with the Common Sense folks at DAOstack and Tangible AI. I think that will be the one. Once that is going, people will be able to look at the TEC, and I'm thinking that this is going to be our best bet in the short term for starting to attract and engage kind of the next wave of people, and it will be much more obvious what we're trying to build once that comes out.
Sounds good. I'm gonna say something a little bit controversial, but I'm surprised that there's I'm surprised that we cannot say anything existing can be classified as a service at the TEC.
I would say regarding like the services that we've made, I would point to um, the Commons configuration dashboard, which is not very known, but it is a dashboard that allows people to play with different parameters and their values and how they affect one another, and like all the math is done sort of like in the back end, and you can just get the visualization of what it means to changing certain values. So that's open source. Any DAO can plug into that and assess how they will be structured in terms of collaborative economics. So that's a first. I would say also that we funded the CADCAD community. So CADCAD, the Python library for open engineering. Uh, we funded the community to help grow so that more people can understand what it is about, to know, learn about it, get informed, and also contribute to its further development. And yeah, obviously, we funded the T Fundamentals course, which hasn't started yet. It starts on October 14, but thousands of people have signed up for that. So we will be at the forefront of supporting or educating the first generation of software engineers. And then also, I would say peripherally or indirectly, we funded the proposal inverter. So it allows several DAOs to fund one initiative as opposed to the initiative having to go to each DAO separately to request for funds or grants. And also, in conjunction with General Magic, we developed the praise reward system, right? So a dashboard for people to quantify the contributions of others, of course, connected with the Discord bot that people give praise through, so that people can quantify and receive the value that they contributed in the form of TC tokens. So those are some of the things that we've done. Not to mention like the leadership structure that we have created. You know, all the working groups, all the stewards. That's sort of like taken for granted, but it's pretty solid in the sense that even if people go away because the roles get eliminated, the structures are there, the manifestos are there, the Google Doc information is there, a lot of information there too for someone to pick up and keep moving. So those leadership structures, I would say, are invaluable as well. But I mean, it's sort of like sketchy to pitch them, you know. But they're valuable, and they took a lot of amount of and time too. So those are, in my opinion, the things that we've helped build. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but I say those are the main ones.
Cool. Thanks for that.
Of course,
Yeah.
many of those aren't sole effort, right? Like my understanding is that the we haven't generated, say, any revenue from being the first praise testers and kind of helping Common Stack and General Magic build that. So there's a lot of like there's a balance between, at least in my eyes, like we build a lot of like open source, like public goods things, but we don't have the what I don't think, and what I think we've missed is some sort of service, some sort of service on top of that. So say now praise is being implemented in Common Stack, in Giveth, like surely the TC could have played a part, could play a part in implementing it and pitching it to other DAOs and implementing it in other DAOs and taking a cut from kind of helping them set it up, or kind of the expansion of our projects, having a revenue structure that is facilitated like by the expansion of our projects. We don't have that. I'm not sure if that made sense.
I wanted
I
to
think that
quickly chime in there. I think the issue there is that for those matters, we are closer to a granting project, and there's a lot of conflicts when it comes to offering those services. Because we could certainly offer praise activation services, but that's conflicting with General Magic because they offer the same service too, right? And that applies to various other things. But going back to the great resume Manu did, I think this is an idea I have mentioned before, but I think we are also again on a great position to someday become a regranter for major organizations that spend a lot of money on grants, but doesn't necessarily have the expertise and the connections we may have on this space. And we, just as Manu said, we have experience of the proposal inverter, the Kafka community, T Academy, etc., etc., etc. That's probably an interesting area to explore.
yeah, but that to that I'd say then let's call a spoon, right? Like we're testers of, we're no more than an end user in the praise system, as in the TUC has helped build it, but it has like nothing else. So those sorts of things that maybe are missing from our vision and need to be included from the moment from the go points where we start kind of involving ourselves in one of these projects. It's like, cool, and how are we gonna package this to make it a small revenue stream, or how are we gonna do this to help other DAOs and help them help us with their money?
I would say that we are uh, more we're more like preferred stakeholders other than end users, because we could sit with the general magic management team and be like, hey, let's find a way to sort of like monetize this each in our own way. That just hasn't happened yet, right? It's just a decision that has to be taken, that we would have a say in it. It's just, I guess, no one has done that yet. But and I understand your frustration or your opinion, and I share it. I would certainly like the praise, which is part of our cultural stack, right? That is something that interested me, or that hooked me very early. That we realized that organizations are not only built on technology stacks but also cultural stacks, and the praise is one of our rituals that go into the cultural stack. So I would certainly like that to be shared more, but again, it's sort of like yeah, we're tied to general magic in that sense. So maybe later on we can find something to monetize the praise system together, or iterate, fork and just do our own version, and I don't know, but yeah, that's an issue onto itself.
So, welcome back, Nate. We were just talking about we're talking about kind of the general strategy of or the general assumption that I'm making, which is that fundraising for the TEC will become much easier when we can show to the outside world that we really are the Schelling point for token engineering, and that we are um, doing a great job of attracting in lots and lots of token engineering professionals, be they actual engineers themselves, or could be lots of it could be strategists, could be lots of different people related to this field. So we were just talking about um, uh, I think Manu was making points like, actually we do have some, or actually Risha was asking, well, I'm kind of surprised we don't have services already, and Manu was pointing out that we do have some services. I think that the augmented bonding curve is and the dashboards are an example of a service, um, but I would say that much like gravity and uh, even transparency, these are services that could be offered to other DAOs. Um, and, I mean, I spent like 10 years um, running a consulting company, and it's tough. It's tough to scale up the hourly rates, especially if you're offering open source software. Um, it's it's definitely, you can do it, um, but it's a tough go. And I think that those are some services that we have built. Um, I think what we're going to see is that making a lot of money from those is going to be a challenge. It's not that there's no money there, but it's a challenge. I think that the reason that I've been when I talk about services, what I think of services is more the Schelling point services. And so what does that mean? That means like the services that are going to act as like a giant attractor to bring in and be like unequivocally, obviously the Schelling point for token engineering. Like, what will it take? What will we have to provide to the field in order to be that beacon? Um, those are the services that I'm talking about. And so uh, when we build those services, and the curation services, like I think the first step in that, um, And there's no guarantee that that's going to work, but I think it's a good logical first step, like sharing knowledge and sharing expertise is one obvious example of the kinds of things that the Shelling Point would what a Shelling Point would need. So so I think it's going to be important for us when we talk about services in the future to be kind of separating and being specific by what we mean by services. I think that there are these services that could be valuable as consulting services to DAOs, and you know, even those, like, you know, the ABC is not ours. It's not the TEC's to sell or service. You know, General Magic is and the Common Stack team itself, right, has invested a lot of time and money in building these things. So, hey, so that's what I'm saying is there are.
I can't hear you. I don't know if that's just me or not.
Can other people hear me?
I couldn't either for a bit.
I couldn't, but we can hear you now, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I must have just
Yeah.
cut out. I'm sorry. Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is when we think about services, if we can think about Shelling Point as the target, right? What services do we need in order to be the Shelling Point for token engineering? And when we have those, then we start attracting like a really broad base of token engineering professionals of various types of expertise. And then, you know, NT's vision that he's talked about, you know, like, would the Ethereum Foundation one day turn to us and say, hey, TEC, you should be a regranter. We're going to give you millions of dollars. And we want to use your community of token engineering experts to help us decide where to invest this money. That's like totally doable, but we can't right now keep doing, we can't sustainably keep investing or granting to projects because we're running out of funds. And so we need a way to inject new capital into our common pool. And I think the only way out is through, and that through path is being shown for. So, but I'm really excited about the Ethereum Foundation as a potential, like that could be huge for us. Could be huge, and they are looking for the next wave. You know, they do it for Gitcoin, and they're looking for other regranters, right? So we are a very logical regranting organization for them, but not right now, right? We don't have that critical mass of people coming in who can be those people doing the conviction voting. Any other thoughts on this before we move on to the next topic? Okay. I mean, I encourage some feedback, and I will send the documents out in a couple of weeks, and I would love to get like these are some critical assumptions that actually kind of make or break where we go, and whether or not, I mean, ultimately the TEC thrives. So, okay, so let's move on to the next topic. Nate wanted to give an update on the Treasury proposal that he's putting together. Nate?
Yeah, so apologies for any delay on presenting the document. I am currently in discussion with Dan from Gnosis DAO. He's a huge supporter of the TEC, and so it was really good talking to him about kind of some of the challenges that we have with the augmented bonding curve, having our TEC tokens within the laser tag multisig, and how we need to figure out a way to hold on to those tokens. And so he is helping me develop a proposal for Gnosis DAO to actually pass, to actually get a loan, and perhaps not even get rid of the tokens itself. Just a direct loan from Gnosis DAO to initiate our treasury as kind of an ecosystem development grant. And so
hopefully this kind of forms really nicely. The reason I've been stalling out on the first investment proposal strategy is to kind of get this kind of clarity around what direction we're heading in right now, and what the Gnosis DAO will be in support of. So that is the big one right now. The TEC tokens would be great to hold on to for things like token swaps, because being able to have kind of a foundational fund for our treasury development and hold on to those tokens will allow us to do a lot more things than we initially thought of within the roadmap. And I think that's a really, really important aspect, because I think the partnership building that we could use with those 57,000 TEC tokens and have a small amount of funds for a treasury startup is going to be really beneficial to us. And so I really kind of wanted to focus more on the partnership aspect, not only getting our basic funding within our first investment strategy with our different the stablecoin investments, and start putting these funds into DeFi and earning some yield, but also using those TEC tokens as a method for getting some value aligned organizations starting to get involved and having utility of these TEC tokens. And so that should be wrapping up probably by the end of this week. And I hope we can get a Gnosis DAO proposal up by next week. And so that is currently on the docket right now. And so depending on the structure and what Dan thinks the Gnosis DAO will be able to swing, it has a lot to do with how we approach this investment strategy. And so, like I said before, the next steps for us are going to be, of course, to have that document released, proposed on the forum, passed within Snapchat, and then we will formally request the funds from LaserTag, and then implement on that strategy. This is going to be kind of, it's going to be a little bit difficult, because I think that what we're going to need is people to fall into certain roles and functions of contribution. I had broken down the management of the Treasury into 3 broad categories: the execution team, the analysis and research team, and the transparency and reporting team. And so the idea behind this is that each small group or individual will contribute to those efforts on a kind of quarterly basis. So analyzing the investment strategy that we have in place, whether it's producing good yield, and making sure that the investment strategies are sustainable. The transparency and reporting team will start to develop what do we need to communicate back to the community. And then, of course, the execution team are going to be the people on the multi-sig. And so the multi-sigs are going to require probably the majority of people in this room. And so I just want to make sure everybody is comfortable with, if you're interested in being a signer on a multi-sig, it would be really beneficial, because we're going to have set up multiple multi-sigs on different blockchains. And so having a session where we meet up and go over exactly how that's going to work is going to be a little difficult, but I hope that we have some interest in that. So if you're interested in being a participant and a multi-sig signer for the Sampo working group and the 12th room group, then please let me know. I know, Risha, you've already reached out, and really thankful for that. And so if you're interested in helping in that regard, please let me know. But
Yeah,
outside of that, that's the update.
I'd be pretty interested. Just
cool, yeah. And so I'll have some more information on not only the multi-sig, but the kind of the agent monitor setup that I have proposed for separate multi-sigs that we're going to try out within this first investment strategy, where we're going to have 2 individuals on a multi-sig, one of 2 multi-sig, that will be in charge of a small amount of funds that will be able to work with HAL. I don't know if anybody's recognized HAL.xyz, but it allows us to integrate with Discord. So anytime there's activities within Aave or any type of DeFi protocol, it notifies you as a monitor on Discord. It notifies the Discord channel and says, this transaction happened at this time, exactly what type of transaction happened. And so we have this kind of mutual monitoring that occurs with every action that we take within the 12th Rune group. And so getting that set up on the Discord is another challenge. I'm not sure if we have anybody. I know ViViV had done most of our programming in terms of the Discord. I haven't been in contact with him in a while. So if anybody has interest in helping with that as well is another challenge. But how.xyz is a really, really good tool for smart contract monitoring.
Nate, wow, I don't even know where to begin. That's, first of all, that's super cool about your conversations with Dan. So, did I get it right that he's thinking about extending a loan that would be kind of free and clear of actually? I mean, would we? He would still need some collateral from us, and that would still be the TEC. Is that correct?
Perhaps. So Gnosis DAO has $1 billion treasury almost, and so the thing is that they've been wanting to do more things in terms of creating an ecosystem fund to help kind of facilitate the organizations that have been on the Gnosis chain for a while to help start to develop them and making sure that they're succeeding. And so he stated an interest that he would love to see it as just a grant, ecosystem grant, but if not, it depends on how the Gnosis DAO members vote and what they would be interested in. He just wants to make sure that the proposal that we develop is feasible. At worst case scenario, we do offer up to 57,000 TEC as collateral for a loan, and that should be doable. And so, but right now they're going through that process. They have their treasury management delved out to a small organization called Carpat Key, which I've been talking to in terms of they seem really professionalized. I mean, they manage their entire treasury, which is a very, very large treasury, and learning how they execute on that as well. And so they look at it as a diversification tool and a kind of an ecosystem development strategy. And so it's one of those things that it's still in the very beginnings of a process, but I do think it's really important to get clarity on that, because I think if we can get just an outright grant, that would be super beneficial. So yeah, because that would free up that 57,000 TEC to really start to go after partnerships. And so I think that is going to be the big use case if we can get that. So I'm going to keep talking with Dan about it and keep pushing forward with it. And I'll keep everybody updated as much as possible. But what happens with this, partnership with Gnosis DAO has a lot of impact on how we approach this first investment strategy. And so I'm okay with taking my time on this. I just want to make sure that we kind of get the messaging out there and kind of ensure that we are conveying that we're going to handle this money responsibly and that it's going to really have an impact. I think that's the core concern. It's like if we do give this grant, are we going to see the impact from it? And so I think that's trying to convey that to Gnosis DAO is the hard part. And so so that's kind of the update, and I'm exploring that right now, and we'll see how it goes. But after that, we'll definitely need to kind of catalyze around the processes of the management process that I've been learning from Carpat Key. So yeah.
I don't know if it's because I have the AC set too high in this hotel room, or if I'm just really excited about what you just said. I have chills. So that's really cool. So the idea would be that this grant, assuming that they went forward with it, would be to basically enable us to put in place treasury management.
That's correct. And so, and the idea, in that worst case scenario, so there's three possibilities. It's an outright grant, or it's a straight up loan. And either way, I think that having that TEC tokens free of being, locked up in any way is really, really beneficial. So those are the first two options: is that either it's an outright grant, or we have some type of loan that's like long term that we can just slowly pay back, which I think is also a doable option. I think it's preferable over locking up her 57,000 TEC as collateral for a loan. And so it just depends on the structures that they want to put into place and what they want to try out in terms of DAO to DAO partnership.
That's so cool, man. I was not expecting that turn of events. So that's wow. If you can pull that off, man, that's huge. Because I was honestly, as I'm thinking about like the operational cost of doing this right, like what you're describing, it's like, it's not going to be free. So if they're willing to help us do that, poof, that's huge.
Yep. And bottom line, I expect us to at least get the 57,000 in collateral and hopefully get that done.
Yeah.
If we can get it to a grant, it'd be so beneficial. So
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's real exciting. So one thing I was going to mention is that Bear and I have been thinking about, how we did. We wrote up these kind of roles for the Sampo organizer and then the Sampo steward. It just describes like what are the responsibilities and that kind of stuff. It might be helpful to just do kind of a similar thing for those three types that you described, like the three types of roles you were describing. Just something simple. It doesn't have to be fancy, but I don't know if you're interested in that, maybe connect with Bear and like there's a way to kind of like just summarize those roles so that people know what they'd be signing up for. I think that'd be
Yeah. And I established those roles, but like the thing is that I would like it to be as automated as possible. If we can get that process automated completely, that would be great, where we don't have to constantly have eyes on things all the time, where we have kind of this automation where it notifies us of changes or things, problematic issues within our investment strategies. I think that would be really beneficial, but that will take time. And so most of the stuff will have to be kind of human centered at the beginning. But I do think the first conversations we should definitely have is like, how do we automate this process for ourselves? That way we do not have to constantly have to worry about it or have charged responsibility by the individual.
That sounds like that's got Rex written all over it. Rex?
Hey,
But
You can see with the new Discord features.
yeah, I mean, I've done Discord setups before. I don't know how involved it is, whether it's because the development, not really, but setting up Discords, I've done a couple. I think I still manage some. I think so that I could do. It depends a lot on like how involved it is setting this thing up. Whether it's a sysadmin job, which then I can do, but if it's development, then we'll have to see. But for the moment, yes. And if not, then we'll need someone to help me out.
Yeah, I think.
And the other person, NT, would be another good person to. So yeah, let's circle back to that because NT and I are going to be talking probably next week about some of the stuff that he's doing, various projects he's working on. So maybe there's something there too. Welcome, Octopus. Wait, is this the Octopus?
The Octopus.
The Octopus?
Yes.
Well, wait, is this the Octopus that was involved early on with TEC, and is that who is here?
I believe so. And because of his most recent tweet, I went down the rabbit hole on the Golden Bach conjecture for no reason, and I loved it.
Well, I don't know if you can speak right now, Octopus, or not, but if not, let me just welcome you here to the Sampo call. It's great to have you here. but we are about to wrap up. And we ended up running long on our conversation about the fundraising stuff and the Treasury thing, but totally worth it. So I'm going to take this the conversation I was planning to have about what is needed, what's most needed right now in the field of token engineering, and how that fits in with our.
It's a tiny tiger.
It's a tiny spider.
A tiny tiger.
Octopus, is that you? Have you just gotten very young?
Tiny
Okay, we're gonna have to wrap up. But so for next week, one of the things I want to talk about is as we think about the token curation service, how we're going to use that, and like what are some of the, if we're thinking of ourselves as a field building organization that is building the. Hey, Octopus, can I get you to mute your, or I guess maybe I can do that. Can't do that. Well, we'll just wrap up here. But basically, one of the things we're going to focus on next week is like, who would we want to bring in to the TEC who's not here right now, right? Who are the folks we want to bring in, and what would we want them to be able to do in the TEC to help build the field? Okay, so we'll talk about that more next week. So thank you everybody for coming today, and it's super great seeing you all, and we'll talk next week. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you, Gideon.
Thanks, Gideon.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Gideon.
Gideon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
The
everyone.
bumblebee alone.
Bye.
The bumblebee doesn't need help. The bumblebee can do stuff all by itself.